Go ahead.
Today, we broke down the discussion questions into four main categories. One being sidewalks, eyes on the street. Second, was safety, I believe. No, livability of the city. Then we have movements of strangers. Then we have inclusion and safety. Then I'm going to have to scroll all the way back up to the top so that we can look at quick breakdown. Okay. A few questions. Okay, perfect. So first we had how can architects and planners design public spaces that encourage informal surveillance without compromising privacy?
And then we have in fostering informal observation, also unintentionally promote profiling or exclusion of those who appear out of place.
And then what design strategies can help cities like Boston or New York to bring back active, watchful street life in areas that have become dominated by cars, highways, or underused public spaces?
Can the idea of eyes on the street still work in cities with long winters or extreme weather where people spend less time outdoors?
And how can designers use thresholds, transition, or layered spaces to mediate the flow of strangers to residential areas?
And finally, how can architects and planners create sidewalks that balance safety, sociability, and comfort for children, elders, and people with disabilities?
Sorry, and then we have a few extra over there. And then how do we include people in the planning process? And then how do we evaluate it once we have implemented an actual design?
What are they missing? You read the readings, you engaged in the discussion. You have your own urgent questions. You've been thinking about it. You submitted your question and you responded to the discussion, but the world didn't stop turning when you hit submit. You've been thinking about it ever since. Now is the moment of truth. What do we need so most urgently to get the answer to? If we're gonna make a difference, if we're gonna have an impact, if we're gonna have a successful career, if we're gonna join in the joyous advancement of making our cities work better. It's a really fun thing to spend your life doing. I'm so jealous that you have it all ahead of you. In order to get that to happen, what do you need from us in this lecture? Does this cover it?
I don't know if I'm necessarily answering any of the questions you kind of just said, but I did have one thought with the response discussions, where there were a couple of different questions around, like, how do we oh my gosh, people on the street, how does that make other people feel safe? And then I was wondering, what are design that we can implement on the streets? Not that aren't necessarily putting a person on the street, but what's their life on the street in order to have that as the impact of sensing, because you can't have 100% of the time people on the street. So what design moves do we do?
So is that up there?
I can't really read that right now.
We do have design strategies on there, which is basically design moves.
Where is that?
It's a little different on this one, but
What design moves?
Are you
Well, yeah, I think it's related to this one. Streets are empty in the winter. Streets are empty at night. Streets sometimes are empty. How can we do design? What design moves are available, even when the street is technically devoid of humans' presence? Is there anything we can do to make it feel occupied and increase
And you
More
use the word activities, or activities we can imagine in the street. Actually, about that, we have an event this Friday. I just don't remember.
Oh, yeah, this Friday.
Friday is out, yeah.
That's a real event.
That's a real event, yeah.
But there's something to this question.
Yeah.
What about design features that increase safety,
Yeah.
even in the absence of activity, like in the winter? Can we design a presence? I don't have that slide. I wish I did. I have a slide that responds to that.
Not today.
But maybe I'll improvise, or I'll create an illusion.
Maybe like, I know like during the fall semester, you're like walking at night through the quad, it makes me feel safe because like there's curtain walls, there's sometimes they have in spaces but they have eyes in the street, and also like some of the lighting issues that they have that kind of illuminate the street where I like to get sort of spooky dark in the middle.
Yeah, so that's a good one. Let me do a needle survey. I do that every time that questions emerge. Sometimes you have to leave the studio late, very late at night, am I right? Yeah. And you have to walk to your dorm. So raise your hand if you feel unsafe when you're walking from the studio to your dorm. Please raise your hand. People are different. Raise your hand. I need to see your hand, please. Okay, raise your hand if you're done. Okay, that's happening every time that I do this survey. The majority of people who feel unsafe are women. Like just happened today. So I have to say that because we also have to aware that there are differences in us, and for some reasons that cultural, whatever, there are these differences affect the way we experience the state. Yeah, whatever. Okay, what else? So I just want to highlight here another thing. So we have three main categories. We have a category related to safety and surveillance. We have one category related about design of public space. And we have one category related to planning processes. So do you think there is another big thing that is missing today? In addition to the question of how we design, how we our planning processes, there is something that we are missing today. What else? Major. Any question that you have that they don't fit in this three categories? Just in case. Okay, we have something. We have something. Yeah,
That's good.
let's do it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
So remember that if we don't mess up with the time, you'll have a time and some minutes at the end. So guys, I have to be honest. Today is a big day. So these topics are really important for us. So this is like a 20 minutes, 3 hours of class. Yeah. So you cannot believe the amount of information that we have.
As a matter of fact, you'll notice from the title, where's the title come from and why is it in quotes? Radiant Garden City Beautiful. Anyway. It was in the reading. It was in one of the readings. It was at the beginning of the Jane Jacobs reading. Anyone? So normally, this course has been taught for 80 years in some version or another. And the typical way this course is taught is from the beginning of time to the present, or stopping short about 50 years from the present, stopping around 68 because scholars are nervous about teaching anything relevant to the present moment. We've done the opposite of that, and we're brazenly talking about the year 2050. We've spent most of the course talking about those 50 years since 1968. Is that 50? 60 years. So now we're getting to the point that overlaps significantly with the way this course course was taught when I took it. And I took it in the 90s. And we did a week on the City Beautiful movement. And then the next week, we did a week on the Garden Cities movement. And then the next week, we did a week on Radiant Cities. And then more recently, we've had to compress it because we're so focused on those issues that are going to help you in your careers. We've had to just reallocate the precious resources in the short time we have together. And so we compressed all this together under the critique that Jane Jacobs launched in the 60s. She said, all you planners, you're just repeating the cartoonish diagrams of the past 100 years. You're just slavishly regurgitating all of these simplistic cartoon diagrams that you learned in your architecture and urban planning training, and you're just reproducing that, and you don't care what the impact is on the actual people who have to suffer the consequences. Just stop it. And there's no real distinction between City Beautiful and Garden Cities and Radiant City. It's all just one giant cartoon sick joke that is being perpetrated against the people who need good operating cities. So and there was a shocking moment. I used to say, oh, in order to understand Garden Cities, for example, students need to read the source literature. They need to read Ebenezer Howard, who wrote about the Garden City idea in 1896. And so students read it. And my intention was for students to react against it, to say, oh my God, I can't believe they used to think that. Of course, this is wrong. To my horror, what was happening is students were reading Ebenezer Howard's Garden City and then saying, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's cool. So 120 years after it was first presented and 80 years after it was critiqued and quite justifiably so, torn apart and said, this is a problem, Wentworth students were saying, oh yeah, this is cool. And oh my God, that we can't let that happen. So just to be clear, Jane Jacobs' critique of Radiant Cities, of Garden Cities, and the City Beautiful movement is the takeaway we want you to have. That these models that were used to produce the cities that we've inherited are deeply and profoundly flawed at their core. And the emphasis of this lecture, even though there's 180 slides covering these three topics, we're going to whiz through them and we're going to focus on the glorious task that falls to us, which is to reverse the negative impacts of the 20th century and to boldly redesign our cities so that the suffering, the needless suffering of populations is flipped. And now we can have cities that actually empower communities, increase the life chances, the opportunities of young people, and create a much better world. Literally create a much better world. And there's no more beautiful task that I can imagine than the task before you all, which is to go forth and do that. So just to be clear, these are bad examples. City Beautiful, Garden Cities, Radiant City, bad. These are good examples. Good. Okay, is everyone clear? And this has to do, just a quick personal note. When I became a parent and I had a little kid and then I had another little kid, and they put a lot of pressure. I don't know if you remember putting pressure on your parents, but things go crazy often in public places. And it happened at least once, but once is enough, where I said, Cooper, sit down. I took a tone And it struck me, and I said, whoa, 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 what was that? What was that? Is my father here? The voice of my dead father? I was looking around, and to my horror, it wasn't the voice of my dead father. It was more horrifying than my dead father showing up behind me. It was my voice. In a pinch in our professional lives, when we're in a pinch, when we're panicked, when there's not enough time, you will find yourself and you will find your colleagues replicating the landscapes that are familiar to them. And we need to stop ourselves from doing that. The things that we see in the world around us, we should be constantly critiquing the things we see in the world around us and evaluating them and asking ourselves, what do we wish had been done instead? And if the power went off because of, I don't know, whatever scenario you want to imagine, Iranian terrorism or just failure of the grid, if the power went out, we would walk around campus and we would do quite well, maybe better than using the slides. But time is short, so we're gonna do a quick thing. Or we could just open the shades and look out the window. There is so much for us to learn about what has been done horribly wrong in this world and what can be done. What are the possibilities? And it's all right there, visible out this window. It's visible as we walk around the campus. And Dave Wallstrom is retiring this week after 30 years of being the vice president of fiscal plant here at Wentworth. And he started his job shortly after graduating from the architecture program at Wentworth. So the Wentworth campus is very much a product of Wentworth education in the architecture program. Dave is a great guy. He's very friendly. He's very sharp. But he's not interested in new approaches. He studied the city beautiful. He studied garden cities and he studied radiant cities. And he's made decisions and advised the board of trustees of the Wentworth Institute of Technology. And this is a product of a Wentworth education. And so, so much of what we're talking about here is visible on the campus. And so much of these decisions have to do with how safe you feel when you're walking late at night. And if you're not a woman, welcome to the design professions. That's no excuse. You are ethically obligated to put yourself, to the extent you can, put yourself in the shoes of other users. And secondly, understand that you can never put yourself in the shoes of other users. You need to listen to other users. You need to listen to women. You need to listen to children. Even though you were a child once, you don't remember. Listen to children, listen to elderly. What is it like to be in the spaces that we are engaging with? And the true test, the moment of truth in a lot of what we're going to look at here, Corbusier, when we look at Radiant City by Corbusier, his grand vision, and we've seen it before, the key phrase that guided all decisions with the Radiant City, the modernist city that we've inherited, is cities built for speed are cities built for success. Right? So the faster the traffic moves, the more successful the city will be. And that was the principle. Here it is. This is the modernist city right there. Boom, 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 boom. And towers in the park. There it is. And instead, Jan Gehl, who we'll get to know in this lecture, Jan Gehl said, cities that are built for children to walk on their own to and from school are the most successful cities. Do we see that here? Is there any of that here? Yes, there is, but it's not on the Wentworth campus. It's over here in the brilliant work of William Rahn Associates in the design of, what's that, West Village Northeastern? This design for Northeastern is exemplary. And if we had time, if the power did go off, we would walk first here. No, first we'd walk here. This is City Beautiful. This is a symmetric Beaux-Arts building. There's supposed to be an axial corridor here that you can see this triumphant building at the end of it. That's classic City Beautiful axial orientation. We just forgot to build that road, that boulevard. Wentworth, the building we're in right now, is the second axial City Beautiful, symmetric, grand opening courtyard. That's the second one. So two very clear demonstrations of City Beautiful ideas right here on campus. Then let's go to Garden City. Garden City ideas are the ones that gave us suburbia. Cities are kind of ugly and crowded and dense and dirty. And the countryside is devoid of cultural and opportunities. So let's create the best of both worlds, the suburbs. It's the best of the country and the city together. Unfortunately, the way it was developed, although there was some very positive examples that we're going to look at, the way it was developed was largely had unintended consequences that we didn't correct. We were not critically engaged in critiquing the work. It wasn't an iterative process. It wasn't sufficiently iterative. It just became baked into the operating system and just whoosh, took off and covered the continent with the same suburban sprawl, automobile dependent. And now it's happening all over the world. And we didn't correct it in time. So where do we see that? Well, in the 1970s, Wentworth said, why can't we be more like those suburban campuses? The city was a little dangerous and dark, and I mean, it's still dangerous. But the Board of Trustees made a very serious attempt to move Wentworth out 60 miles outside of Boston. They had land lined up. They had a campus plan. It was designed. It's going to be a beautiful, sprawling, classic quad campus out in the country, lots of parking and lots of people driving to and from. And they came very close to achieving it. But then the last moments, it fell apart, which just seems to be a pattern that still continues. The last minute, there's always a failure, which is now resulting in 17 of our colleagues being laid off yesterday, interestingly enough. So what the compromise was, let's take this piece of land, this parking lot, and let's make it, let's fill it with grass. So at least we can take photographs of students walking across a grassy lawn in front of the main identifiable icon of Wentworth. And so Sweeney Field, almost regulation, football pitch, soccer field. So almost legally, it's almost qualifies, but not quite. But we don't care. The main reason we're taking one of the most valuable pieces of land in New England and building a sport field on it is so that we can create a garden city image for the campus and make parents feel okay that their darlings are going to be safe. So that's the story there. That's the garden city element. So, and then there's the radiant city, tear down the neighborhoods, get rid of the street structure, and just have motorways passing between object buildings. And because we don't care about the space between buildings, we have these object buildings. We design these beautiful object buildings, and let's orient them north-south so that it gets the proper solar orientation. So the fabric of the city, the experience of the streets, well, first of all, we get rid of streets and we get rid of these outdoor rooms. And we just have object buildings oriented according to solar orientation. And then we have lots of leftover space. We can run our motorways, we can park, and we can have some grassy areas. And that's the Radiant Garden City idea that was here. Then in the 80s, they tore all that down and they built something that reasserted presence of the street as a social space. So it's all here. And then so much of what we're going to look at, the ideas that we're going to look at the end of this lecture, they're all here. And a lot of them are here. Questions about this? Okay. So just to make sure that we're clear that most of these diagrammatic ideal planning models of the 20th century are a mistake. We're going to start with the critique by Jane Jacobs. And Damien, are you guys have your laptops out for this class? Can you close your laptops, please? Okay. So here's an example of the kind of places that are produced all over the country and then the world. Because of the well-intentioned rules that are established. Is this a safe place to walk?
Needs more context, but not necessarily.
Well, there's no eyes on the street. And this is odd because this is Pasadena, California. Pasadena is a walkable community. Right? Do you guys know Pasadena? Pasadena is a beautiful place. It's a walkable city. This is not far from the main street, the historic center with lots of beautiful restaurants. But because architects, the task of the architect is to create a beautiful abstract work of sculptural art as an object, artfully placed in an open field, away from the street, this is what you get. And why are these trees in planters? Can you guess why these trees are in planters? Here's a hint. There's no soil under this plaza. Why are these trees in planters? Why is there no soil in them? What? What's it? Why is there no soil underneath this plaza? Is there parking? There's parking below. Thank you. Yes, there's parking below. When you get into practice, you'll get a client and they want to do, I don't know, office building. And you'll say, how many employees? And we'll say 100 employees. And then I'll say, okay, 100 employees. The average office program square footage per employee is 350 square feet. Okay. Then the next question, that includes their cubicle, the corridors, the break room, the bathrooms, the mechanical core, the elevators, all of that, 350 square feet per employee on average. Then the next question, okay, where's it located? And based on where it's located, how many of these 100 employees will drive? And if it's in the United States and it's a new building, it's probably not in that expensive land location of walkable areas, although this is very close by. So the chances are, in most cases, there will be 1 or 2 or 3 people that won't drive. And the first person who's least likely to drive is the the CEO of the company, because they like to walk. They live in the neighborhood, they located this land so that they could have a pleasant journey to work. But you know what? He might have to go to lunch, he's gonna drive too. So somewhere around approximately 100% of the employees are gonna drive. How much space for the car, for each employee's car? Is it more or less than this? You think it would be less, right? Because how much is a parking space? It's 8 feet by 20. So that's only 160 square feet. But what about the driveway? How wide is that? That's another 20 feet. So you have to have at least enough, so you have to at least double that. So we're already at 320. The actual number is, and you can write this down and impress your colleagues. It's 450 square feet per employee for their car. What just happened to the cost of this facility? It just more than doubled, right? Because there's a cost per square foot. It's less expensive square feet. The people you can stack up because people move around really conveniently and you can stack people very conveniently. But what about cars? Do cars move up and stack conveniently?
Parking garage.
Parking garage. As soon as you go to a structured parking garage, now you're at 600 square feet per car because of all those ramps and everything to get up there. And it's much, much more expensive. So this was hugely expensive to put cars underground. And then once you're underground, you can afford to do one level, but if you go to 2 levels, oh my God, huge expense because people stack easily, cars don't stack easily. So not only does every vehicle take more space than every employee, it has to stay very close to ground level. You can put those cars anywhere you want as long as they're at ground level, or at huge expense, you can take them up a level or down a level. Questions about this? So no one decided, hey, it'd be a great idea if we made our landscapes look like Houston. Remember last lecture? I love the way Houston, downtown Houston looks. Let's make our cities look like that. No one said that. The problems, this is quotable. You might want to write this down. The problems of the 21st century are a direct result of the successes of the 20th century. Got it?
No,
The problems of the
no, I got that, but you have to narrow that down.
Okay, so we were so successful at transforming the world with our Radiant Garden City Beautiful models. We succeeded. No century of human activity has ever been so successful. Congratulations, especially to the United States. Congratulations, you did it. You overdid it. You overperformed. You transformed a continent in the space of 100 years with an absolutely new, fresh, forward-looking model. You did it. There were a few unintended consequences. What is the biggest unintended consequence that looms large in the windshield of your career path? What's global warming? Global warming went from being, he's 2 for 2. Yeah, it's good. Does anyone else want to call him here? Or is it just all, you just gonna let him walk away with this? Okay. So global warming is like, back in the 60s, those of us who were reading popular science, we knew that the scientific technocratic response to any problem that emerged would be responsible. There would be responsible adults and they would make choices that would identify problems and then address those problems in order of priority, because that's what children expect of adults. We expect adult behavior. But to my horror, as I've reached my 20s, 30s, and beyond, the world and studied history, there was a dismantling of those mechanisms that would create rational, adult, responsible responses to the problems that were dismantled. And now the decisions just seem to deepen the problems, not make them better. So it's good to be aware of these new operating systems so we know what to do. You're welcome. So throughout most of human history, we understood that the places we create are the stage set of the drama of human life. We are born, we grow up, we live, we die on the stage of our public spaces. We engage each other, we meet people, we fight with people, we have conflict, we fall in love, we marry, we have children, we raise our children, we die. And our children, it all happens here in the realm of the spaces outside of our homes. And this is the symbol of that. Serlio's stage set was a composed, is there a single architect? No. This building was built first, then this building was built in response to that one, competing with it a little bit, but complementing it. There's a polite recognition of something resembling a social set of norms and courtesy, and it's presenting facades and masks, and all to produce the space that is the stage upon which the drama of life, private life, public life, all life, plays out on the stage set that is produced by the edges. The spaces of our world are created by the edges that architects individually and collectively contribute to produce those spaces. And throughout all the things we studied in history up to a certain point, there are example after example. We don't know and we don't care what's happening in these buildings. What we care about is that Michelangelo created this composition of facades to produce one of the most memorable and powerful spaces of history. And Bernini in front of the Vatican did the same. Yes, there's a lot of homelessness there, yeah. And you know what this is? Of course, it's right there on the slide. I always do this. Who recognizes this? What is this? And someone will say, oh, that looks to me like it's the 1748 Noli map of Rome. Oh, wow, how did you do that? I'm not getting fooled this time. So the Noli map of Rome is a figure ground drawing. One of the fundamental tools of architecture is the figure ground, but it takes it one step further. These are the private spaces that we do not have access to. And so it's shown in poche. Can I use fancy French word for shading? It's shown in poche. But what's this building? Do you recognize this building? Building number 837.
Pantheon.
Pantheon, see? So this is a way of representing the shared spaces that are interior.
So is the O'Shea building or is that just the plot of land around?
Oh, no, it's building. So this is Rome. This is ancient Rome. These are houses. These are the homes of people. And if there's a shop, then you see it like this. And if there's a church, you see it like this. And that's a covered space, other one. I'm skeptical about that. It appears to be a covered space. I think they got this wrong. Whoever added the yellow, I think they got that wrong. That's a square. You can't fool me. They don't have the ability to span spaces like that. But it's a shared space that is enclosed and defined. This is a way of understanding the architecture of public spaces. And that is the theme of this segment and of this whole thing. Streets as the product of design intention. And so you have the classic competition between the quintessential automobile racist, redlining, arch enemy, the villain of the 20th century, Robert Moses, versus the hero of our story, Jane Jacobs. You know, again, this is a cartoon version of it. But Robert Moses is the one who you will remember brought highways into our cities. Robert Moses is the author of the idea that resulted in the clearing of Ruggles Street. I guess it's there, clearing of Ruggles Street, and the Southwest Corridor, which is now the Orange Line. But it was supposed to be a freeway passing right through the Wentworth campus. And of course, Jane Jacobs, the single most important idea for every architect to take away from their education as architects, much less in the urbanism concentration, is the idea that eyes on the street create streets that are safe and pleasant. Any questions about that? Yes, sir.
Are you including this in your wall section? Passive and active or not?
Yeah. Here's the wall section in passive and active. Ooh, there's some thermal bridging going on here, but oh, that's only an R value of 19, right? But we like wall sections that go beyond the wall. I like this.
Yeah.
So your wall sections in passive and active, that's fine. That's fine. But for this class, there's a question of what is a street? And those of you who are not yet critically regurgitating what street is, they say, no, yeah, there's the street that goes from the curb to the curb. Who's with me? It goes from the curb to the curb. No, it doesn't go from the curb to the curb. That's just the travel lanes of the high-speed road users. It goes from facade to facade, right? Who's with me? Facade to facade. Not quite. Why not take it a little bit further? Where did I hear this? Oh, I heard it a few moments ago. The quality of the places we occupy are produced by the architecture that defines it. And it's not just the facade, but it's often the human activity that is occurring behind that facade, especially at ground level. The quality of our places, including our streets, the quality of our places are a direct outcome of the quality, the presence of human activity, one program layer into the architecture. We advise you to always design a street section or a section through the quad. It always should include any program space that lies behind those facades. Question? Comment? Okay. So I'm not even going to mention these. They're in the slides. Alan Jacobs did some good stuff with this. Kevin Lynch, who taught this course at MIT for I think 25, 30 years, passed on that course to his star student, Julian Beinart, who then taught it for another 36 years. And he's the one I took the course from. And so Kevin Lynch is famous for this 1961 study of mind mapping the mental experience of what is the human. He interviewed people and asked them, what do you remember about the city of Boston? And they remember the Common, they remember the West End, they remember certain things. They remember certain districts, they remember certain pathways, they remember certain landmarks, they remember certain edges. And so his pathbreaking research identified the 5 elements of how humans experience urban places. And these principles are profound and important to all of us. We're not giving it the attention it deserves, but I think this is one of the problems and challenges of this topic. And this is really the way I experienced it. I took the class with Julian Beinart at MIT. I TA'd the class with Julian Beinart at MIT. I taught the class with Julian Beinart at MIT. And Julian Beinart is a man so terrified of stating anything in a complete form that I noticed in those 5 or 6 years of working with Julian that he tended to never finish his sentences. He would start a sentence and say, oh, it's all too much. And then he'd go to the next thing. Say, oh, it's all too much. And I didn't notice really the first time because I kind of loved the dangling question. And I've spent the rest of my life filling in the holes that Julian left in my education. It's not the best idea of how to do it, but given the level of challenge of all this, sometimes it's the best we can do. So I showed you one slide about Kevin Lynch, and I'm admonishing you to dig deeper. Sorry, and you're welcome. For about 20 years, Weldon Priest taught at Wentworth, and Studio 6 was the urban studio. For the first 6 weeks of Studio 6, Weldon would have students painstakingly draw streets as if they were a building, so as architecture. And it really was a brilliant exercise. And these are the types of drawings that were produced. And it's really a demonstration of how to draw, how to understand cities as architecture. And Kelly, thank you. The diagram. So this is one of the ideas of taking streets that were originally for people, that became for cars, and returning them to people. And in the discussion around this, it was all about the quality of the first level. The energy that's here is to a large extent produced by what's happening at ground level and how these programs are spilling out into the shared space. Thank you, Kelly. We don't have time, but please look at the slides. This is the use, we use video in what we do. This was the original use of video. We didn't connect it properly. So please look at that. But the key insight on this is all the intro in terms of what Jane Jacobs opened our eyes to, how streets with light traffic have lots of social connections. Streets with moderate traffic have fewer, and streets with heavy traffic, people tend to be more isolated. And this way of researching is very much a product of following up on what Jane Jacobs opened our eyes to. And it's our job to figure out ways to quantify it, to use design methods to understand it, and to build according to what we learn. Did you have a question, Liam?
There you go. So what are the different colors? All colors.
So this is light traffic, or this is the humans leaving their home and going across the street and forging a relationship with neighbors. The residents of the street were asked, have you ever talked with anyone else on the street? And they said, yeah, we're good friends with them, and we know them. And so this is the way that research is represented graphically. Streets with slower traffic, light traffic, have more social connections than streets with heavy traffic. Okay. So I feel like we've already done this. We did it in history theory. Just looking at Wentworth campus, we got enough. The key principle that you can see here is that the human scale of vision is the largest dimension. We can see further than we can smell. We can see further than we can hear. We can see further than we can taste. we see further than we can touch. It's the visual sense, the visual component of human experience that produces these visual axes that are at the core of the organizing principles of our cities that were developed in the City Beautiful movement. Okay. Questions about City Beautiful? There was a critical response to the City Beautiful when Camilo Sipe said, whoa, 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 City of Vienna, please don't make these vast spaces. They're out of scale to the human. I recommend filling in some of these vast spaces with more intimate architectural scales and drawing very much in the spirit of the Noli map. No time for Barcelona, Chicago, and Chicago, the plan of Chicago was very much conceived the way we're asking you to conceive of architecture and design. Physical design is the instrumentation of operating systems. Daniel Burnham, when he led the effort to do the plan of Chicago, he acknowledged that this is more than just the physical design of the streets and blocks and experience of the city of Chicago. This is the transformation of the operating system of the city of Chicago. And there wasn't the group that produced the plan produced a book on civics. Wacker's Manual of the Plan of Chicago, Municipal Economy. This was a catalog, a guidebook, the rules to the operating system associated with the physical design of the city of Chicago. If you're lucky enough to meet someone who grew up in Chicago, and if they're in their 80s, you can ask them about this book, and they'll say, oh yeah, I remember that book. I still have it somewhere in a box. Yeah, we studied civics class using this book. Physical design is directly connected to operating systems of the nation, of Cleveland. Hitler took advantage of the City Beautiful design to convince the German people during World War II that this was important. The colonization of India also. Okay, next topic. Garden cities. Yes, I like the idea of the best of both worlds, the city and the country. But the things I like best are and that you're likely to encounter in your careers, this Clarence Stein's neighborhood unit idea, where they put the roads, see the biggest roads are up here, and the center is a community center, or it's often an elementary school. And the streets are smaller as you go towards the center. The larger streets, this is in the 1920s and 30s when cars are starting to become more common. And they were starting to be seen as a liability, as a hazard, as a problem to be solved. And so they created streets with slower traffic and lower levels of traffic around social spaces and civic centers of civic life in schools. And this is my favorite, same year, some of the same thinkers. In Radburn, New Jersey, they created a plan where there's a street network. The men would leave the house in the morning, they'd go out one side of the house, get in the car, use the street network, and go to the city to work. The unpaid worker in the household, the woman, would go out the back of the house, which was a second front, and the second front of the house had no cars, no traffic, safe pedestrian routes, so that children could walk to school without ever crossing the street. This is an idea from the Garden City that resonates with what Jan Giel says, that streets and cities that are designed to benefit children are successful cities. The Radiant Garden City, you had all this in history too. But notice the figure ground drawing, that the core idea of the Radiant City was to get rid of these horrible streets and create object buildings with motorways and open landscape between the buildings. And that's what they did. That's what it looks like. That's the vision.
Very well.
Yeah. And there it is in Paris. There it is on the ground level. And the four functions of the city: dwelling, work, recreation, and the big one, getting between these separate zones. The dwelling is not within walking distance of the work, which is not within walking distance of either recreation or dwelling. And the biggest single land use in this scenario is the automobile landscape that allows us to get between the three useful places. And whether you're, during the Cold War, whether you're the Allied powers of the West, the US and England, or the Axis powers of the Soviet Union and China, everyone agreed that we were transforming our cities from this into this. Brazil, Chandigarh. So what should we do? The first thing that happened was in 1953, these ideas of Corbusier and the Radiant Garden City of the three functions connected by transportation. The first thing that happened is the young architects said, whoa, sit down, old man. Sit down, old man. We will take it from here. It's not the four functions. It's the four scales of human association. We need to study the way humans work, the way humans occupy space, the way humans use space, what do humans need to thrive and not just survive, but to thrive and to build strong communities. We need the space of the house. We're pretty good at that. We need the space of the city. That's at the other end of the spectrum, the other scale. And in between that, we need to pay attention to the scale of the district, the neighborhood. But most importantly, and this is the one they emphasize, we need to design the space of the street, because that is where the drama of life, they're coming back to this idea of Serlio, this is where the drama of life unfolds and takes shape. So they produce lots of streets. And then we get Jane Jacobs, we get the Wohnerf. Wohnerf is a Dutch term. Wohn means to live, and erf is like a yard. So it's a life yard. And basically, there's no space for parking separate from playgrounds. So they convert their parking lots so that they work as playgrounds. Wohnerf.
Well, it's a very nice street to live in here because people are outside in the evening, talking to the different neighbors, and children are out playing. They just slide up and down and they run up and down.
But it's a street.
To your living room.
But it's a parking lot.
It used to be a straight road here, not a bank like this, and without those trees and without those plants. So then they decided to build a lake.
So you get it. There are some fundamental conditions of the Wohnerf. Living streets is the English term for it, that you will encounter. An extension of the living streets idea is the co-housing.
Communities are neighborhoods. It's a collection.
No time for that. But co-housing is a housing model usually configured around a shared open space. This is my house. We started a co-housing community in 1997. We built it in 1998. And this is Monday nights. This is what it looks like. This would have been driveways and parking lots in a normal development, but it's the children just run out. My kids grew up playing with their neighbors in these spaces, shared shop, we build our own things. And this is the connection to the ladder of participation. We own land, we own facilities, we own huge amounts of space in common. So who's the boss? No one's the boss. We have to reach consensus on everything. If one person, it's like the polder mentality of the Dutch that we got in the first lecture. If one person says no, the answer is no. We try as much as possible. We shoot for the maximum feasible participation, to quote Sherry Arnstein of the ladder of participation. It's not easy. And sometimes we go through periods of failure, but we still hold on to this ideal. We're always trying to get maximum participation. And it often involves participatory space. We configure co-housing communities so that we create these shared spaces, shared governance, shared everything. Shared streets, design of streets, the 15-minute city, some more work. Thank you, Tyler. This is some of these ideas at work. Walkability. If you create walkability in multiple places and string them together along a transit area, you get transit-oriented development. Also in the original slide, Ruggles Station, Northeastern has built dormitories. They were told you can build as high as you want. It's a transit-oriented development. You are exempted from parking requirements. So even in that same view of this neighborhood, we see transit-oriented development. This is the punchline.
At first, they started to push out.
No time. I will send you this video on WhatsApp. Do you promise to watch it? Please?
I'll try my best.
Can you get your?
Is it not on the slide?
It's in the slides,
The,
so you can watch it in the slides. But basically the 5 rules that Jan Giel, that's how you pronounce it. Jan Giel, you'll hear his name. People in the profession will expect you to know Jan Giel's name and how to pronounce it. Jan Giel. His 5 rules: stop building architecture for cheap gasoline, make public life a driver of urban design, design for multi-sensory experiences, vision being the largest one, but anything more than 100 yards is pretty much too far. Make public transportation more equitable. Ban cars, that's number 5. Those are his rules. And that's it. Sorry, I went over. Okay, Ignacio, you're next.
Wow. So I'm gonna turn on the light for a second. Is that okay? Yes. So if you're sleepy, please wake up in this moment. Wake up now. Why is it not working? Yeah, it's working. Oh, yeah.
There's no gentle way to do it.
So let me say how I start these slides presentations. So I don't know if you know that I have another hat that is not a professor in universities, but I am a consultant in for mayors in many places, especially in Latin America. So one of my jobs is moving in Latin America and teaching or working with different mayors about how they create better cities. And I used to talk about tools of participation. And once I had a student from Tecnológico de Monterrey, Mexico. He was with me talking with one of the mayors of Mexico City, and he told me, why are you not teaching this in class? Oh, because it's a different world. This is a class for mayors. No, you have to teach that in class as well. So that's the reason because I decided to have this discussion here as well. So I'm talking now for mayors, not for architects. But what you have to highlight with me second here is that everything that is here are basically Jane Jacobs learnings about how we design or basically design street. But there is another side of Jane Jacobs thinking, which is basically the process to make that happen, which is participation. So my point is that one of the main learning outcome for Jane Jacobs is everything that Robert has discussed so far about the eyes towards the street and how we create a new environments to improve participation of the people. But at the same time, she proposed to do everything through participation. Participation is the tool to make that happen. So if you recognize many of the great examples that Robert just presented, for example, the Woonerf was not an idea from an architect. That was not an idea from a city hall or from the city. That was an idea for the people. They decided to close the street, they decided to put their cars away, and they decided to redesign the city to create this livable, this Woonerf. And then the idea came to the participation. Sometimes to the city, sometimes the idea comes top down from the city to the people, and many times ideas come from the people to the city, and this is what participation is about. So this presentation is in tandem with another one called democracy. I'll do my best to run, because my goal is to have 3 lectures in 2 classes. We're having 2 exercises and 2 lectures from this class to the next one. So I will have to skip many places, but in any case, many of the slides, but in any case, everything is related to that ladder. Robert already explained that. It's understanding that participation is not a thing. It's a spectrum that goes from manipulation to citizen control, and there are different stages of participation. My goal is to explain, take 5 minutes to talk about this ladder. For me, that is the most important outcomes of a participation that have happened so in the history of architecture. I'll go with that. So participation is a tool for innovation, productivity, design thinking, and efficiency. I'm gonna skip that, but I usually talk with my clients that you can be more efficient use of your resources if you use participation by including many stakeholders. And everything came with this idea of criticizing the way, I want to reinforce what Robert just said, is the idea of the hand by the architect dominating the way. Turn on the light now. So as again, the hand of Corbusier, I always was struck about this image by this hand of Le Corbusier dominated from the top, the way the Reading city is. So I made this collage, including Le Corbusier, like a god with the god hands that dominated the way we design. And so and remember that they created this CM grid where supposedly from the architectural perspective and designers can organize the life of people in different fragments. So actually the grid say that you have different activities in different places, and then you can divide and organize the world, the territory, in specific uses, and you can control that from the top, from top down, basically by the hand of the architect, I said architect or God? By the hand of architect. Yeah. So, but at the same time, there was a movement that happens mainly in the 60s. And I was basically coming back to my lecture about the right to the city. I don't know if you remember that I showed you many ideas that happened in the 60s about proclaiming the participation of people into decision making. And the most favorite one for me is this one in French that says the beauty is in the streets. That's one of the posters of French May, 1968, this protest that happens in May. And it happens every place in the world, claiming that the beauty is not in the wall section. The beauty is in the reactions that the street creates and the activation that you create in the street because of the wall sections and beyond. So, and within that movement was Jane Jacobs, that lady. If you are a good architect, you have to love Jane Jacobs, and you have to read this book, Death and Life of Great American Cities. That I don't want to go deep in that, but Robert already explained the way she reinvented urban design architecture by claiming the integration of people into decision makings against the villain that it was Robert Moses. So it was just to explain briefly, because this is a class of urbanism, you have to know about that. So everything started in 1958. So this class is about urbanism, is basically founded in the principles of urban design. And everything started in 1958 at the GSD in what was called the first urban design conference.
56.
What I said?
You said 58.
Oh, sorry, 1956 at the GSD. That was the first urban design conference. In that moment, these guides met together, Christopher Alexander, Kevin Lynch, all great guys, I have to say. Gordon Cullen, Joseph Louis-Sir, who was the dean of the GSD at that moment. But they met together to create the big principles of urban design.
From Barcelona.
Yeah, he was actually he was an immigrant from Barcelona.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was the dean, and you have all of these guys, and they were basically creating the diagrams, the principles of urban design. And in the audience was this lady, this tiny lady with these big glasses, Jane Jacobs, and they went to the podium. Who was the only one who was not an architect, she was a journalist. And she said, great, we are doing amazing things. We are doing these amazing diagrams to organize the way we design cities, but what is the people? And that changed everything. So we're talking about 1958, where this lady changed the way we understand urban design. We understood that the most important things of Kevin Lynch, which is an amazing designer, is not the diagram, but the way he explored the diagram through participation. He put participation, Jane Jacobs helped us understand that participation is should be in the top of our decision making, and that was the core of this debate, this classic debate, now classic debate between Robert Moses and Jane Jacobs. Yes, it's about the way we design, putting walkable cities instead of highways, but also it's the how we design that, not from the office of architecture, but with the people. So participation is at the core of this debate against Robert Moses. And I'm going to skip that. Yeah, let me skip that. This is just a fun fact. So there is a play happening in London about this debate between Jan Jacobs and Robert Moses, where Ralph Fiennes performed Robert Moses. If you're going to London, please go to see that.
Who plays Jane Jacobs?
It's not a well-known artist, because Jane Jacobs was not a well-known designer.
Be Helen Mirren.
Yeah, yeah. So there was a lot of literature about the topic. For me, the most important one is the ladder of citizen participation, the ones that Robert just mentioned in this lecture. If you want to know about participation, if you care about people, in my opinion, you have to read this manifesto. 1969. So that beautiful manifesto by Cherry Arnstein was forbidden for many years, and now is becoming again in the top of I'm sorry. So, but the most important is in this ladder. I'm gonna take 5 minutes to explain that. What she said is that participation is not a thing. It's not it's a spectrum that goes from manipulation to complete citizen control. And what she said is that in that spectrum, the top that you go to the ladder, the better you are, the most participation you're giving to the people, and the more integration you're having, you're providing people to the decision making that you have when you're designing a city. So what she says is basically, it's not enough that you go to a community and you say, this is my project, look how beautiful it is. Do you like this? Raise your hand. So let me ask you a question. You have an amazing renders of your project. And I don't know, let's say that you're doing a project in Lowell. And you have an amazing render in Lowell, and you go to the community and you say, let's do a participatory meeting. This is my project, this is my renders. Do you like it? Raise your hand. This is the common setting of participatory meetings. Where do you think we are? This lab. That meeting is manipulation therapy is informing your consult. Where do you think you are? That meeting. What step of the ladder? Informing. She said informing. He said informing. Any other option? Yeah. Consultation. Probably you are okay. You're around here. Any other option? So you are informing. She said that this is basically the level, the middle level, that is tokenism. Tokenism is a fancy word to explain something that is close to be participation, but it's not yet. Which is say that, come on, sometimes you have non-participation, you go to the place, you manipulate the community, Obviously, if you have nice renders and they don't know how to do a render, you have to say yes. So can you see the power imbalance that we have here? So you go to the community and you present very, very fancy renders that they cannot do because they don't know Rhino or Lumion, or they don't have various AIs installed in their computer. How they can compete with that? How they can make an opinion? So the tools that we use as an architect sometimes push us down in this ladder. Because when we show a render, they cannot say, I'm in disagreement. The render looks so nice. So how we push up this level, how we provide them more citizen control, or we transform that into partners of our process when we are designer and we want to integrate people in order, and I'm trying to answer these questions, guys. So how do we foster on inclusive planning processes? How do we evaluate the city planning processes? What Sherry often say, if the process goes in these 3 levels of participation, you are really more inclusive. The answer is there. It's really clear in this case. So the answer is there. Yeah, Liam.
I'm a little confused on what participation. Is that like how active you are in the city community, or?
Okay, that's good. So I'm gonna define participation after that. But again, I'm gonna do my spoiler. Is how you include the voice of many. The inclusion of the voice of many into the decision of the design is participation. So Liam, if you're in a participatory meeting, the community voice counts for you? You have to say yes. Yes, okay. Do you think your voice counts?
If I'm in the meeting, yeah.
Yes, that's a good answer. I'm saying that loudly because one of the big confusions in participatory meetings is this type of architect that goes to the meeting and put their project and say, I'm gonna listen to you. I don't count. I just want to listen to you. It's your opinion. That is not participation also problem. So for good participatory meetings comes with a debate, dialogue between architects and communities. It's a participation of many, including you. If you go to a participatory meeting and you only listen, you are not doing participation. You're just listening. You're basically doing therapy. What she says is that participation comes with a debate, discussion, dialogue of ideas to write something that is different than I'm having and different than you have. It comes with an overlap of your ideas and my ideas, all ideas to create something better. So participation is inclusion of different voices into the decision making and the design process. But what she said that only through, and that's not the only way to create empowerment, which is the last 3 ladders. So I can spend 1 semester talking about this ladder. So I suggest you to read the document. But at the end, the most important thing is that that's what we propose to create more democratic environment, more democracy into decision making. There are many books that you can read, and they go from different spectrum. They go from someone that says that participation could be a tool of tyranny, and some of them say that participation is a tool of transformation. Why some of these guys that participation could be a tool of tyranny? If this is not right, if this is not true, if you go only on the lower part of the session. I gotta give you an example. I come from a dictatorship country. I country that has a dictator.
Me
and
too.
Are you sure?
Oh, sorry.
So sorry, are we in a free country?
Good. I take it back.
Okay.
The jury will ignore
Okay.
strike from the record.
Yeah. What is really common in dictators? In dictatorships, they put an idea and they say, okay, this is literally what is happening in my country. Your income is $10 a month. I'm not kidding. It's the income, the average income in my country is $10 a month. And the cost of food, you need to have $100 per month. Can you eat? No, you don't. You will harvest it. You will be you will be in trouble. So you say, okay, this is my participatory meeting. If you say yes, I have this food for you. If you say no, I don't count, you don't have food. This is exactly what is happening. Is that participation? They are participating, yes, but it's participation as tyranny. So be careful because sometimes this is an extreme case. But Sometimes we go to the office, present to the meeting, we present nice renders. And we say to the community, you have this if you vote for me, if you raise your hands. What did someone is saying that this is manipulation and this is not complete participation. So participation is not only the tool, it's the awareness of importance of empowering people and including their voice, their real voice into the decision making. So what I did, I gotta skip that, but just basically through different surveys, I created a set of slideshows with certain quotes of the book, and I suggest you to read them, that these are different quotes that helps us to define what is participation, okay? And also the other thing that we have in this slideshows are different participatory methods. So it was really lucky. I was really lucky, thank you. I was really lucky to work for the International Development Bank in creating a framework of participation. And we created 13, that I translated here in Spanish, 13 tools of participation. I'm an advocate of participation, and I hope that in 3 or 4 years, you come back to this lecture and you decided that you want to share your project and to discuss and to share this project. The word share, I don't know if you I have a word count in my head, and the word sharing is one of the, Robert repeated a lot in his lecture. Sharing is an important word in participation. We share knowledge, we share ideas, we share needs of transforming the world, we empower, we share power. It's such a process of sharing. So I hope that you can, if you want to share this in your project in the future, you can come back to this lecture and look at some of these examples that are basically written here. They are basically tools that you can use in your participatory projects that goes from tactical urbanism, basically transforming spaces through art to include the voice of the people into decision making. Or you can have citizen assemblies with people. You can have fun ideas like this one. This one is something that was really fun. So basically we ask people to write in a post-it some ideas, and then we projected the map. They post the ideas in the map, and we transform that with GIS into the mapping to create the tools of planning for the city. So the city have a tool plan that was changing week by week through the participation of people. Or sometimes we have this, which is we call that manner shop, which is handy shop. It's a joke because it's not Photoshop. So basically we have an acrylic that we put in front of one space and ask kids to say Rodrigo, who is a great drawer, and how they imagine this space. And while they were talking, he was drawing in front of the space for the acrylic. So this is a photo for the acrylic, imagining how the different things that you can have there. So my goal is the participation could also be very, very fun. So having just tools like this game board where we transform different ideas into talking wood pieces, dowels, screens, and we create this game board that we used for reimagining the city, like playing Monopoly, but instead of having Monopoly, we were sharing the transformation of the city. And from that came some ideas that we basically transformed. This is Queens, New York, that we transformed into an urban project that we gave to the city. So I have many experience doing participation, and I have to be honest, sometimes you can give them citizen control, sometimes you cannot. So the latter for me is a fluid thing. So it's true that we empower more if we provide citizen control, but sometimes you cannot. Be careful about that. It's a political decision at the end. The amount of participation that you give people in order to create eyes towards the street and to include people in your project, it depends of your political decision with the people that we're working with. I'm gonna give you an example. In this case, we were working in informal settlement and self-produced environment in Caracas, and this wall was falling down, and it was a risk for people to die because if that fall down, they will go on top of their houses. If we have that type of risky situation that you can recognize because you are an expert, you can go to the community and say, "What do you want to do?" let's participate here. No, you have to solve the problem. You following me? Sometimes you need to have the political decision of go lower in the ladder of participation because you want to protect life, for example. Sometimes you can negotiate going up, and that's also comes with education and the way you engage the project with the people. My point is that this ladder for me is a tool that sometimes, depending of the stakeholder, depending of the project, you move up and down. But all, in order to create your project, we're always trying to understand the importance of including their voices where they can be included. So this is what you have for participation. Can I jump to the democracy one? So I think it's the next week.
Oh, I can get it.
Okay. So and let me. I'm gonna take half 10 minutes. Half 10 minutes to introduce something that will continue working next week. Remember that I told you that we will work in 3 sessions split by 2. It's about democracy and something that we call a spatial democracy. It sounds like a new field, kind of. So this is basically Edward Soja. He said that the projects have some spatial, social, and economic ambition. So democracy is an economic process. Democracy is a social process, but also democracy is a spatial process. So democracy happens in the space. If we have a street that is active, that is inclusive, that includes many people because of the way it's designed and is made, you can have more democratic environments. We're trying to understand how we build a spatial democracy, and these are real examples about how democracy affects the life of people. From Louisiana, Alejandría is not here, this community that was basically excluded because of this highway, from 45 urbanism in Florida with gay community, from the border militarization and the fact that there are people that are not people, that are basically people who are not accepted, from the streets, from the street protests that are happening in Los Angeles in this moment, and the way they change the dynamic of the city. These are demonstrations that when democracy is weak, it changes the space, and the opposite. When the street is more democratic, the system is more democratic. I'm coming back to the first idea of this class by Robert. You remember the culture and the project? My point here is that if we understand the spatial democracy, we can understand that through the democratization of the street, we can change the culture and the system and make it more democratic. So, especially because we are almost there in the Independence Week. So we have to talk about democracy this week, because at the end, one of the problems that is happening, I'm moving a little away of democracy, is that democracy is in risk everywhere. What we call representative democracy is in crisis. This is a report from the Pew Research Center that demonstrates that democracy is dying in this moment. And these say that many places, this is many countries in the world, from Greece, Mexico, to UK, to Hungary, Brazil. The survey demonstrates that every city in the world, every country in the world, are stop believing in representative democracy, and I'm believing more in strong leaders. So the blue one is representative democracy. This one, what is this color? This color, yellow color, is strong leaders. For some reasons, we are stopped believing in democracy. We believe that there is a group of strong leaders that will solve our problems, and we don't have to take care of them because our problems are so huge. And this is happening not only in America, this is happening everywhere. So, and this report demonstrates that. And there is one, this is a graphic by Moises Naim that demonstrates that when you have the power concentrated in few people, or when you have power concentrated in a lot of people, you have less inclusion, less vitality, and less political stability. So when you have power concentrated in few people, you don't have democracy. But when you have power spread out with many people without control, we don't have democracy. What he said that we have to find through representative democracy something in the middle that help us to create more vitality, economic vitality, social inclusion, and stability through the fact that we share power. I think the word share is something that is becoming important. How democracy works, you know that democracy began in Athens. So, okay, this is the traditional image to show the beginning of democracy. So you have the agora, the public space, where we share our thoughts and we decide. Please, Ali, what is missing here? This is democracy. This is completely democratic. What is in yeah, Liam, sorry.
They're all men.
They're all men. What else? Yes.
Property owners,
They're property owners. Yeah.
they're white.
They are not slaves. They are white. Well, I know. So my point is that democracy.
That's the painter.
Yeah, that's a painter. Yeah. The democracy. Thank you, Liam, for being so fast. At the beginning of democracy, you need to fill certain conditions. Why you need to be owner and you have to be male in order to participate in democracy. So, and that was another issue of this type of democracy. What is the big problem that we have in participatory meetings when we have an agora to take decisions through participation? Yeah?
Some people don't make those decisions.
Because they are not there. It's an issue of a scale. One of the big problems of participation and democracy is scale. So we cannot only, and that is closely related to the space. Participatory democracy have failed in the past. Actually, that failed. And we will see next week that after this, we came from a long period of imperialism. That's your class next week. And then we jump to another era of democracy that was invented by this genius, Hamilton, Madison, and Jay, was the representative democracy. So they tried to solve an issue of participatory democracy. What's the scale? Through representation. You following me? So participatory democracy have an issue that we have this constrained space, and then we have participatory meeting in planning in this constraint, but we are not everybody can be here because the agora has a limited space. So they create representation because they want to expand themselves, 13 colonies, the territory is so huge. So I say that remember me, there were two issues of this image of participatory democracy. One is not everybody is included. And second, there is an issue of a scale. We need representation. Then that was Greece, and then we came to representative democracy. And this amazing system that these 3 years, again, I really believe that they were geniuses.
Yeah.
It was amazing that they were able to create this with that representative democracy. They created the magic of democracy in America.
It was really good.
It was really good. And they solved the first thing, which is a scale, because they created representation. So we don't have to be here in order to be represented. I think they solved the second one later with the phrases "we the people." It's including all. Obviously, I don't want to open this debate because we only have 5 minutes. We have to define what the people means. If we understand what the people means in different ways, probably they already also address the second one.
They're still working on it.
We are still working on it. So, guys, I gotta take this serious. So I have an American passport. Am I the people, part of the people?
Do you have it with you?
Not this. No. Yes, I have it. Yeah. Sorry. I have the
Thank you.
ICE is around, but I need to have this mentioned. You know what this?
Passport card.
It's a passport card. You can have it. That demonstrates that I am. So I have a question for you. Am I the people or not?
Absolutely the people.
You said that it's
Yes, absolutely.
I am part of the people. Sorry?
Didn't they just make a ruling? Free speech ruling
You say that is what determines who's the people or not?
from Florida?
We're working on the execution of what that means.
Uh-huh.
Like, turns out that if ICE decides you can be reported without.
Yeah. Yes.
We're working on, I think it's a temporary condition that will be resolved.
That
In your favor.
that is in process. But in any case, I want to close with this question before leaving the room to you is, so one of the big issues that when you have participatory democracy, I said before that we include the people in the voice of, but at the same time, this is not working in a scale. So we need a representation. And probably our role here, and that's the reason because we are here, is how we create a dialogue or if we solve any contradiction between these two things. I will continue with this lecture next week, but just a spoiler. So I say that democracy is in risk, and what is happening now in the world, at least my view of this, at least the world are going through different pathways. And I think that deserves a discussion. There is a pathway that says democracy is not working anymore. This is Jason Brennan's Against Democracy. So we have to understand that democracy is not working. We have to find other forms with a strong leader or another form of governance that help us to solve the demanding problems. And there is another path that is, this is Leland Moore from University of Pennsylvania. It's having, if we are having problems with democracy, let's have more democracy. Let's open democracy, be more radical with democracy. So against democracy or open democracy, and this is the challenge that I want to start discussing next week. So the stage is open.
Want the lights in? Kiss the board. Wow. Oh.
Okay.
So use another color. Use blue.
Where's the
There's,
red?
there's some blue over there.
Okay. We're moving towards a final question here, aren't we?
Well, questions. This is your opportunity to take the questions that were asked at the beginning, acknowledge the degree to which we have developed our understanding in relationship to those questions, but it leaves even more urgent burning questions that now falls to you all. You need examples. So what questions most urgently do we as a group of humans need to answer between now and the next Tuesday when we gather to discuss these things in a week and a half?
Okay, I think we should probably go through and check off what was addressed, and even if it was addressed, we can still have questions. But we were definitely we addressed how do we address inclusive planning. I think that is also
Well, not to dismiss them, but we need examples. We need demonstrations. What does it look like? Okay, we said these words, tactical urbanism. What does that look like? What does it do? What does tactical urbanism do?
okay, here we go. We have we have the ladder of inclusion. Right there. We can besides thinking about the ladder, we can also judge where on the ladder we need to fall for deciding the inclusion level of the public. It should still be equitable though.
But what does it look like?
What does it look like?
It's almost like Ignacio and I should be asking you guys the question. Sure, blah, blah, blah. Great words. what does it look like? Where are the demonstrations of something that we can learn from? What does participation look like?
In space.
In space, in architectural form. This is hard. Good luck. You could ask us, what examples do you recommend?
What do you recommend?
We're asking you a question. Your response will arrive in the slideshow in a week and a half. So we're not going to answer the question right now, but what can we do to help support your response to the most urgent question? Like some of you don't care about any of this or this, but what I care about is choose something. He wrote the front porch effect, like the question we were, how do we design so that spaces feel safer, feel occupied, even in the absence of actual humans? What is the front porch effect? What does that look like? How does it work? How do we design? What's an example we can learn from of that? Where's an example we can learn from of complete streets? Where's an example we can learn from of eyes on the street? Where's an example we can learn from of co-housing? What does the space look like? And how does it operate? How does it change the operating system to produce greater spatial democracy? Can you think of examples? I don't know. All I know is I'm going to do Cheong Creek from Seoul. I don't care what. I'm just going to do that project again. No, please stop it. We need examples that can teach us about spatial democracy.
I get an answer now.
No, let's help each other out. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
An answer.
Okay.
Well, I did my analysis like 2 weeks ago and I was sick and didn't get to present it. It's in Portland, Oregon. What they're doing at the four intersections in the residential zones is specific areas, obviously, is the neighbors will come together and paint the intersection, essentially having like the really cool design or whatever is going on there. And then on each corner, they're doing like a public library or all these little aspects to make the community together. I think that's one way that
was a good one. You cannot repeat that, okay? It's not.
Okay.
that's
But it's a good one, you know.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
What about when the kids were painting the streets, and example you guys gave, go, so, is that,
When the kids were painting the streets in Curitiba?
yeah, is that an example?
Well, that was a temporary happening, but the spirit of that has been translated into more permanent installations. Like all over so one of the things, so this is tactical urbanism is a whole category that is filled with hundreds of examples that are available to us to learn from. And many of them, what makes them tactical is they're cheap, easy, fast. Not as cheap and easy and fast as just inviting a bunch of kids to draw on the street. But the transformation of Times Square started with Sadiq Khan just saying, we have some concrete castings lying around the yard and we have all these buckets of paint. Let's just move them for like $10,000, which is nothing. It's basically 5 guys in a day with heavy equipment. They moved things into Times Square, changed the traffic patterns, and they made history. So that's so any examples of tactical urbanism transforming space. We love that.
Yeah, but just to close here, the invitation that Rory's pointed to us is take a photo of this whiteboard and try to come with examples that make that a reality.
But one of you can share it on WhatsApp. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that